on my.
Welcome today to Krista's Spiritual Talks. Today is February 16th, 2025, and we have two guests today, Vicki Joyce Braden, PhD, and Craig Allen. Whoever wants to start first and give a little bio of what they do, that would be great.
Craig?
All right, I'll go first. My name is Craig Allen, and I'm a psychic medium. I started my journey as a tarot reader. I had experiences with the spirit world as a child, and I didn't quite know how to understand myself. And so when I was 18 years old, I had my first tarot reading, and that was really started that sort of curiosity with the spirit world, and it has led me to where I'm at today.
So what kind of services or what do you offer through your business?
I do private sittings. I do virtual readings from my home, and I do in-person sittings at different expos around the country. I travel quite a bit doing that, and I'm also been recently working on developing myself as a demonstrating medium, which is being able to connect with loved ones in front of an audience and deliver those messages and really connect the souls of those who have departed to the souls in the room.
Nice. Thank you. Vicki, can you give us kind of general idea of what you offer? And
Sure, and I'll give you a little bit about my background. My background was really traditional. I was an educator and then became a counselor and director of guidance and then a psychologist. So I had a private practice also. So I had a 42-year span of working in education. And then my husband passed away. And I realized I knew I was intuitive from day one. I knew that I knew a lot of things, especially with my clients and the students I worked with and the adults I worked with. But after his passing, I connected with Suzanne Giesman, who led me to some people that were involved in spiritual work and then became a spiritual advisor and then a psychic medium. And so I work with clients in my home, which I have a home office here. I work with them in the office. I work with them on Zoom. And I've demonstrated in England, I've demonstrated in Canada, I've demonstrated in a lot of different places. So that's what I do.
so do most people come to you? Is there a common denominator of what they're looking for?
Yeah, no, not really. Well, people are in pain. People usually are looking for answers or something that they need help figuring out. So I guess in that sense, they want answers, they want closure, they want to finish grieving, they want something like that. But they're all different.
So it sounds like you're using your background of counseling and all that mixing with tarot and your psychic abilities to help people through those difficult times.
Right. Yeah, I don't do the tarot cards. I do those for myself, but yeah, I found that's very helpful, the background that I have. But medium is a little bit different. And being a psychic, as a psychic, I connect with the other person spiritually, their level. It's not like they're going to reveal everything to me that, all their dark secrets, but I will get a sense of what could possibly be needed. Or if it's a medium, if I'm doing the medium reading, the mediumship, then someone from the other side will come through with valuable information that will help them in their day-to-day life today. So either way, it's helpful, but I used to separate the two, psychic versus medium. I don't do that anymore. It's whatever they need at the time.
So you had the traditional counseling and then moved into more of using your psychic abilities and that. How would you compare the two?
Traditionally, you're schooled to do things in a certain way. You'll follow a general outline of things. With mediumship, it's a little bit different. It's a little freer. There'll be people who have come to me that have committed suicide and want to talk and try to do healing with the people who are left behind. And there'll be people that just come to share their love, or there'll be people that want to give information because a person is having a problem. Traditionally, it was more restrictive. This is not restrictive at all.
Sounds like it could more quickly get to what the issue is too.
Certainly. Well, and there's this other part of, we don't like to talk about it, but when you're a psychologist and you're working for a private practice or in a public setting, it's about billable hours. It's about how quickly you can get those billable hours. And sometimes that means a person has to keep coming back and back and back and back, where it's more expedient as a medium at times to hone right in, or as a psychic to hone right into the problem.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Great. Kind of going back to the beginning, there's usually a defining moment. It sounds like you had somewhat of a mainstream job and then moved into working as a psychic medium. Can you kind of define that point in your life when you went into the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, so I grew up in a relatively conservative, religious setting, and it was really hard to sort of understand my ability and understand my gifts as a child. But as adult, I had a career, and I think that defining moment was when I just decided that um, it was time. And I about 10 years ago is when I decided to sort of, because I was reading tarot cards for myself a lot, and I would do probably the closest friends. But then about 10 years ago, I started reading, for friends of friends. And that's where I started to really sort of branch out and sort of see how that felt. And that curiosity and that empathy and that sort of sensitivity that I started feeling at that time really started to sort of come to the surface within me. And I knew that there was this expression that was waiting to come out. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I was always a sensitive, as a child. I was a sensitive child, and I've always been very empathetic to other people, but it just felt different. And I knew there was more. I knew there was more waiting for me. And so that was really that sort of defining moment that, I think that there's another side of me that I want to do. And I want to do this not just on friends. I want to do this in a larger community. And I want to connect with more spiritually minded people, because part of my upbringing was about recovering my faith, and recovering my faith, not just in spirituality, but within myself. And that was an important part of sort of my healing process. So I do believe that as a psychic and as a medium, that it has been a healing process for me to help restore my faith and my connection, to my higher power, to source, to God, however that language is that you refer to our to the universal power. But it really instilled that faith back into me again.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want to put words in either of your mouths, but this is a question for both of you. So would you say that this is more of taking a path on a soul-led life, or how would you describe that in both of your experiences? Vicki, if you want to start on that one.
I think it's more of a selflessness about this. When I had a professional career, um, whether it be in the school system or private practice, it was very focused and driven. This one, it's more allowing me to be who I really am, to bring those gifts that were given to me at birth, to allow those to surface and help other people. So this feels right, where before sometimes it just felt like there were times when you'd go home and you want to bang your head against the wall, I think, oh no, not this again. Or, and it wasn't that I wasn't trying to help. It was just sometimes you're limited in that scope when you're supposed to do it a certain way, where being a medium or being a psychic, you're also growing. Like Craig said, you're growing, you're learning about yourself as you're uncovering layer upon layer of information when you're working with a client.
Very true. Yeah. Craig, how would you describe that?
So in my upbringing and as in my career that I had, I was in charge. I had my own business, and so I had to sort of um, make the decisions and sort of steer the ship. And what's been, I think, a struggle or an obstacle that I've had to overcome was surrendering. And surrendering to that you can't force your ability to grow. It just has to naturally happen within you, and it has to reflect through your life. So for me, it was surrendering to the process of being me. And it was surrendering to the process of letting go of trying to control an outcome of what I want. Because let's face it, what we always want isn't what we need. And so that has been a big lesson with myself is surrendering to the process, getting out of my own way, and allowing that change to happen in my life. And um, it was hard. It was a very hard obstacle for me to be able to sort of allow myself certain emotions, you know, uh, as an empathetic person, you know, as a psychic or in a mediumship connection, you're dealing with a very, very sensitive part of people's lives. And that empathy that I have worked to develop and feel, I can't say I always allowed myself that permission. And so that is something I really had to um, develop and allow to happen, and not try to be some sort of a puppet master with myself, but to just surrender to that process.
Well, it sounds like for both of you, it's more in alignment with your expression on a soul level, too. You're being more authentically you. Would you say that's true on both scenarios,
Yes.
both expressions?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. I think we all go through different chapters in our life because at different parts of our life, we have different needs. And sometimes that need is very physical, or we have to, create a home or raise a family or create the things put in place, the things that we need to be successful in life. But there comes a time where it is your turn, where it is your turn to actually develop you, and that your energy, um, as I say, doesn't go out to just doing all the tasks of the day, but to energetically develop to become that person who you've always been, to peel those layers back and show who you are.
Not always an easy journey. How about you, Vicki?
I think what is so exciting with this is I'm not in control.
Hmm.
My whole life it's been about control, whether it's controlled by a clock, controlled by clients, controlled by money. And at this point, you're not in control. So when you're doing the readings, spirit's in control. I can't choose who's going to come through. Whoever needs to come through is going to come through. I can't choose certain information. I need names, places, dates. Spirit will work through me, and so it's really nice to step aside and still be able to talk, but to step aside and it's not my will anymore. It's not anything I control. And the same with psychic. As a psychologist, you're trained to hone in on certain cue things. Somebody will say something or look, and you think, okay, then it's this, this, and this according to a textbook. With the work I do, it's not limiting whatsoever. It's a freeing of allowing the spirit to work through me, whether it's working through me from the spirit world or whether it's someone, the soul to soul connection, finding out what their needs really are. And the needs may be as simple as well, what am I going to eat for supper? You know, that may be a real problem at your house. You may have fights
Right.
about it. Or it may be something like, do I need to change a job? Do I need to stay in the relationship? What am I gaining? What do I need to be doing? I mean, it's just such a wide range of activities that we're able to do with being a psychic or a medium. It's just, it's amazing, just amazing.
I think you just touched on something that also brings a lot more joy in one's life when you let go of that illusion and control. And I think the indigenous around the world had it where they're not in the center
Right,
trying to control everything. They're part of the flow of everything. And
right.
it, yeah, I think personally that's been one of the biggest joys too.
So,
I know that if somebody's not used to working with a medium, there's a lot of them out there. So how would you advise somebody as far as integrity with working in the spirit realm? Because it can be confusing of who to work with. And I know a lot of people are really hesitant until they develop a relationship and know if they can trust. So any wisdom either of you would bring in for people considering?
I teach a class, and it's certainly something that I've developed over time. And I try to tell people one of the things to do is go by your gut feeling. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. If it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. But use some common sense because your emotions are usually involved when you go to see a psychic or a medium. You're raw, especially when you've lost someone, like when I lost my husband. That's when my emotions were raw and I went for a reading. So anybody that would have comforted me, I would have probably followed. So if you use that gut feeling, but I also question people who they want you to write down what your questions are beforehand, and then you go into another room and you wonder, well, what are they doing? Are they looking what I did ahead of time?
Mhm,
And the other one is word of mouth. If someone has a really good reading and you trust that person,
mhm,
that's another thing. But I really have to say the biggest one is trust your instincts.
mhm. I
Trust
think
them.
that's good advice. Very good advice. How about you, Craig? Anything come to mind with that question, or you
The,
don't have
the,
to, and if you don't want to, just throwing it out. So,
the first thing that comes to my mind is to let go of an expectation when you sit down. Because sometimes we may have an idea of what we want or who we would want to talk to, but actually, the intelligent nature of the spirit world has a much broader um, understanding as to what we do need. And I mean that is where we all originate from our soul. And so I would say to go with an open mind. And again, with Vicki, I completely agree with Vicki. This is about trusting yourself, and it should resonate with you. If you have an opportunity to see someone work, great. Then you can actually witness that experience. That's amazing. But otherwise, I think word of mouth is great, or or if just something that resonates with you. You know, when we allow the spirit world to come into our lives, and we just surrender to the process of our life or to the process of recovery or healing. Um, what's important to understand is that there is influence there, and I would set aside ideas of coincidence. That if you're really looking for something and you happen to bump into a friend who tells you they had a reading, well, that wasn't by chance. That is a spirit influence crossing. That is a little bit of a, I could call it a mile marker or a checkpoint. Like, you know, free will is your choice. It is always our choice. Our lives are not predestined. But I think that we have opportunities where we can take option one or option two, and those sort of crossings because of because of within our soul, we're crying out that we need something. And you know, God responds to that. The universe responds to that soul crying out. And so if you're aware, the right people come into place.
Like meeting a tarot reader at Maku'u Market or something? No, just kidding.
Exactly.
I love what you said, Craig, because it reminds me of, you know, how many mediums have been frauds, have actually, you know, they're doing it for a monetary gain. And so when Krista asked the original question, it brings that to mind, is that you're being your authentic self. You know, you're looking for answers, and it's not boilerplate. You go to a medium and they don't always respond to what you want. They respond to what you need. And it's up to us as a medium to be open and authentic. And I know how much you have done soul work and how much you have really gone within so that you become a clear channel. And I admire you for that. I mean, it's something that, I mean, I watch you and I'm amazed. And so you're a good example to me of what you would look for in a medium, as someone who has really done the work to soul search so they can be a clear channel for spirit.
Thank you, Vicki. What resonates with me is the vulnerability that it takes to be a psychic or a medium. There is a vulnerability, and it, for me, it was an emotional vulnerability of allowing myself the process of feeling those emotions that I kind of locked away in a room within myself. Um, and I thought I did my work. But in my process, I have had to face those emotions, and I've had to really, really embrace the good and the not so good things, experiences and emotions that I felt. And um, it's been a very freeing experience, being able to, I guess, not be numb. And so as a medium, as a psychic, you know, we do all have to do our work, to understand ourselves and to get out of our way. But I also think there's a vulnerability that we carry that's just as vulnerable as a sitter that we would sit with.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Well said.
Yeah, you're going to be running those higher energies, which is going to push out anything that's blocking. And hence, your reading's going to be from the vibration of the person that you're sitting with. So, again, going back to integrity and people that have done their work. This is kind of the same question, but maybe you guys have a different angle on it. Have you faced any challenges or doubts in your spiritual journey, and how did you navigate them?
Oh, I certainly did. I kept doubting, am I really a medium? And so I would do a sitting, and afterwards, this is practice sessions from years of training. After I did a sitting, I would evaluate, well, was it good? Did I give enough information? Did I, and I would go through this checklist in my mind. Well, I missed here, I did this. Am I really a medium? And so I relied on the information that I brought through to decide whether I was a medium. And so there eventually became a point where there was a shift. I didn't have to prove anything. I am a medium. I know I'm a medium, and the information that is coming through isn't about me. It isn't about I have to fulfill these certain things like you did as a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
I have to allow spirit to bring through. And so maybe, you know, I remember a woman who came one time who had lost 3 people at Christmas time. One of them was her son through suicide. So obviously, I had to allow her and spirit world to work that out with information that I wouldn't have done had I not surrendered and allowed the spirit world to work through that. So, and when you go for a reading, you'll feel that. If you allow yourself, you'll feel the difference when someone is really genuine.
Right, I think so. People are pretty smart that way. How about you, Craig? Anything come to mind with that question, or?
So I think so the hardest obstacle for me, because I had different obstacles at different points in my life. And as a child, I had spiritual experiences, and I didn't know how to. I didn't understand what was happening, and it was actually it was very scary, and it wasn't welcomed or embraced, or it was viewed as you know as evil in the religion I grew up in, and so there was a little bit of a problem because of that, and so I did my job. I locked that up into a little room within myself, those emotions, and threw away the key and thought, well, I'm never going to go back there again. Never going to sort of feel that. Um, but I mean, as a child, uh, I think I did feel a lot of fear. Um, and if I'm honest with myself about that, um, I think it's common, I think, for children to be afraid of the dark. But I was afraid of the dark as a child, and I don't feel like I actually really overcame that fear until a few years ago. And I'm in my 50s, and so that was just fear of that. Um, I think as an adult, it was more of a fear of being myself. It was a fear of accepting myself for who I am, not necessarily just because I can read tarot cards, and it's interesting when you put your intention in, and as a tarot reader, and you know you're using the tarot cards as a tool, but when you branch beyond that a bit, you become that tool. And so I think there was a fear of becoming that tool, and recognizing that within myself. So I think that was probably the hardest, aspect to really embrace myself and um, appreciate all of those experiences, even the ones that maybe instilled fear in me, really made me who I am, and coming to grips with that.
Takes a certain amount of courage to get to the point where both
It
of you,
does.
yeah, spiritual. And like you said, that trust. We touched on a lot of different things. Is there something, Vicki, that you'd like to talk about that I haven't brought up?
No, I think you've done a wonderful job with the interview and asked questions. This wasn't rehearsed, by the way. You know the questions. No, but it's nice to know that you have the insight and the ability as well, or you wouldn't be such a good communicator with us and making us feel that this was a place where we could safely share, just like admitting that you struggle, and Craig has shared a lot of intimate details about his life, and I've tried to share as well. And so it's a wonderful experience. I love my life for the first time in years and years and years. There were times when I just didn't like what I was doing at all. Now I can truly say I love what I'm doing. It's like I've come home. I've come
Mhm.
to do what I'm supposed to do.
And
And
that's inspirational. There's a few different things I heard you talking about. Everybody's at a different point and going to hear something, but for me personally, like when you let go of, am I doing enough? And then trusted.
right.
I'm in that process. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Craig, how about you? Anything else? It doesn't have to, but if something comes to mind you wanted to share.
The thing that comes to mind to me is, I think all through human history, um, every generation wants to change the world. And I think everyone, brings ideas of wanting to change the world. And I feel like I want to change the world also. It is a goal. But I know in order to change the world, you just have to change yourself. And I think you have to live the purpose that you came here to live. And it's like, and I feel like in my career before this, I was good at what I did, and I enjoyed it, and it was a chapter in my life. But I also feel like that was just a little bit of a training for myself to actually get comfortable in my skin and get comfortable with more people. But I really want to talk about changing the world. And because if each and every person just does their work and lives their authentic person, who they came here to be, because nobody came here to hate, or nobody came here to divide. That those are all very physical choices that we make. That those aren't listening to your soul. And I think if every person was to listen to their soul, what they really need, we would change the world thousands of years ago.
I love that. There's a native teaching from Don Coyas that talks about that we all came here with a purpose. And if we don't do that purpose, the soul's restless when it leaves. I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, I do believe that every and each one of us do have a purpose. So, as far as if somebody wanted to get a hold of each of you, do you want to say your websites, or do you want to put it in the bottom, or how would you like to do that?
I can put mine in the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah. And, whoops. I would if I could type. Mine's medium@large.org.
And I'm just kind of curious, you don't have to say exactly where you live, but what area do you guys live in?
I live in Indiana part of the time and in Florida the other time.
Okay.
So the thing that's nice about Zoom is that when you do Zoom readings, at first I was rather like, let's not do this. But when COVID happened and we were doing online classes, that's when I started doing Zoom with readings. And so it doesn't make my readings any better or any worse. The readings are going to be the same, whether you're one-on-one on a
Right.
computer. So anyway, Indiana, I have an office in my home in Indiana. I have an office in my place in Florida. So, but I also have Zoom. So.
Cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
People can reach me at www.craigallenpsychicmedium.com. There's scheduling on my website, and there's also all of my upcoming events. And speaking of events, Vicki and I are going to get the chance to work together again in Oahu. That's coming up in early March. We're going to do a demonstration at La Kaia Healing Center in Honolulu. And then we're also going to be working at the Body, Mind, Spirit Expo at the Blaisdell Center in Honolulu. So I am based out of the Big Island of Hawaii. It's where I live, but I do travel about once a month to different cities in the U.S. Vicki and I met at the Arthur Findlay College in the UK, and we have become good friends since, and I really look forward to working with her in demonstrations.
Well, thank you, both of you. This has been a lot of fun. Appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you. Thank
See
you very
later.
much. Thanks.
Thank you.